Right. I used to kind of do a combination, like press a little, hammer a little. It builds up some tension, and then
Yeah.
Well, when you have an $800 snap-on or some kind of ball joint press that works for many different things, and you don't put it to use, it's like shit. Oh, it's the perfect time.
no,
Let's
I never used the snap-on one, but I used the kind of ones you get from home from AutoZone, and they were
OTC.
like they were always barely enough, like another millimeter, and it won't even work for like Super Duty type stuff.
Yeah.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Glad to have you guys all back here. We got some things we're gonna talk about. What's up, guys? Brandon, OKC, Jeeper, Skidoo. I want to welcome Rich from Limitless Autoworks, pal down in PA. We're going to talk about some of the things he's got going on. But the short that I made today for water leaks. We're going to talk about water leaks and DEF in the diesel. I just got off the phone with a follower from Texas, and we're going to talk about it. But yeah, Zeekster, what up? What up? Fortech Life, what's up, y'all? Chopped, everybody, what's up? What up? Yeah, so water leaks. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get that right out of here. We're not dealing with that. Ooh,
Let me pull it up so I can help.
We get that. I accidentally screwed that up. Thank you. So yeah, water leaks. I was actually Rich. You know who I'm talking about. DeVito. So he sent me a picture this morning, and was talking about he thinks 3 out of the 4 weather strippings are leaking on his doors. He said Alex is complaining of the same thing. They're noticing after a rain that they're getting water droplets on the inside of their truck. And the telltale sign is when you get it on the seat or on like your armrest on the front doors that actually have the pushy the soft leather on it, you'll get like water stains on it. So it's real obvious. You're like, oh, what the hell? Why did this just get wet? I haven't had that particular issue, but I have had a water leak coming from the cab lights. What I ended up having to do was replace all of the cab lights and the overhead trip thingamaroo because that was filled with water. I personally haven't had water leaks in the door seal areas, but I don't, is that something you've seen, Rich? With either just on the fronts of the F-150s or?
What I've seen is them it's fairly new, come from the factory, not have like the drain tubes and stuff installed correctly, and even one 350 didn't even have the drain tubes put in. We had to order them and install them from the factory, and some of them where like the doors and stuff don't line up properly. I think Alex or DeVito one was saying that when they received their truck when it was brand new, some of the doors and stuff were just, I think, was it Alex or was it DeVito that said the doors just were not aligned correctly? They weren't fixed correctly.
So on both of those topics, there's 2 reasons why. So for the doors, there's a guy that stands on the end of the line with a hammer, literally just, it's usually a really high seniority job. He bangs on the doors and closes them, opens them, closes them again, and get them all straight and line up all the body lines. Problem is, there's so much touch and feel to it that if the guy's not good or if that guy's not there, someone else has to do it, they might not be able to do it as good. So that's why you get trucks coming out with bad body lines on the doors, because all the doors have to come off, get assembled on the door line, they get all married back together, and then it's all got to get fitted again. And now, as far as the drain tubes, that's one of those things where I've seen I remember at one point I actually put a stop to it because a lot of times the drain tubes will be routed improperly because there's all these little white clips that hold the tube in place as it's coming down the line. And if for whatever reason someone decides they don't want to route those drain tubes anymore, well, somebody goes to put the A-pillar grab handle on the truck, you got like a split second to put this thing on the truck. And if it all of a sudden doesn't fit, my thing is, hey, I'm not going to jam that on there. The supervisor might come around and say, hey, jam that A-pillar on there and send it. I tell them I'm not jamming the A-pillar on there. So whatever's behind that A-pillar, someone's got to take it, figure out what's going on. Because you could be pinching a drain line, a sunroof drain tube, or you could be hitting other wiring. You got the airbag in there. So, I've seen trucks come down with the wrong harness and got a drain tube and it's not supposed to because it doesn't even have a sunroof. And I've seen sunroof trucks come down or vehicles without a sunroof come down with a drain tube or vice versa. So crazy stuff like that happens. And it depends. Maybe there's a supervisor that's there who's gonna take accountability and make sure everything's done correctly. But then again, maybe it's a dude who don't care and he's just like, get as many trucks out as you can. Don't stop. So it kind of depends on the day. It's probably like that at all the major car manufacturers in the United States.
Probably. I mean, we're going through mass quantities of vehicles in a small amount of time, and I know repetitiveness, is key, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, and then it's a lot of new people, and people are nervous, and it takes a long time to be able to speak up and be like, "Hey, I'm not doing that." It's got to be done right, and they'll listen if people speak up. It's just a lot of moving parts. The reality is most of the trucks will be good, but there's going to be things that slip.
And you can, if Anthony or Alex want to, maybe making a quick adjustment themselves. Yes, isn't it? Can't you just take either the striker plate that's inside the door or the one that's on and just loosen up those couple torques and just move it in just a hair and see if you can bring the door in just so you can seal a little bit better, and it'll suck that pinch strip in.
As far as like how the body lines look, or actually sealing the weather stripping.
Yeah, like to pull it in just a hair more to see if maybe it's just too loose right there. And you would think if you're getting some drips around the door while you're going down the road, you'd be hearing a little bit of air noise as well.
I doubt it because that hinge is actually painted and everything. So you'd have to break the paint seal and all that. When they remove the door, they actually don't take those off. They take the two off. You ever notice inside the door, the two bolts that are one's going to be this way and one's going to be this way. Those bolts that aren't painted, those ones get taken off and discarded, and then they have to put two more. So there's those two bolts, 1, 2, door comes off. Now, as far as adjusting it, you're not going to be able to adjust it from the other where the hinge actually attaches to the body because
I'm talking about like where the door opens. Where the door opens and there's the latch assembly. It's got a couple
striker plate.
Yeah, the striker plate. Just break them loose a little bit. Maybe just move it in a hair and then retighten them back down. Maybe it'll suck the door in just a little bit more.
I wouldn't recommend it. I would say let a body shop tweak with that, because if you loosen that door and start moving it around, you better be good. You better be good.
Yeah, I worked at a body shop for 14 years. I'm not saying anybody to do it, but what we used to do was to line them up or pull them in or out, crack the bolts loose, just a hair, and actually shut the door, push the door shut so the latch is on the striker plate, push the door shut to where you like it, and then very gently pull the handle and open the door up, trying not to move that striker plate, and then tighten it up and check it.
Yeah.
Now when you say striker plate, are you talking about the black striker where the door hits the latch?
Yeah.
You could loosen that. You could probably loosen that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably loosen that up, and then it could move around a little bit with that cage nut. Just don't loosen it. Just don't loosen both all the way. Because
no, if you crack them loose a little bit, and then close the door, it'll kind of put it where it naturally wants to be, and then gently open the door and then tighten the screws back down.
That might take care of some of those drips that they're seeing inside the door, maybe from like the weather seal area. It might help. you know, it's worth a shot if they want to give it a shot and not,
Yeah.
you know, screw anything up.
Cause you mean like to pull the door a little tighter to the body by moving
Right.
that
Yeah.
striker back? Probably,
Right.
you know, maybe.
If you pull it too tight, then the door is going to pop when you release it. It's going to have like a
Yeah.
pop to it.
Yeah. I think that's an adjustment in the factory, but I think a lot of times if you ever go to the tour, you'll see a guy hitting that with a hammer, trying to get the door dialed in just right. He'll shut it a couple of times and he might tap on that with the hammer and just dialing everything in by feel. It's kind of I couldn't imagine doing something like that all the time.
We recently had a 21, like a HD Transit come in, not a 21, a 20, one of the HD body or the bigger body style Transits where the door would pop every time you would open the side door. Everything was misaligned from the factory. The strikers or where everything's got to fit in as it closes. None of the holes were lined up. You can tell where it'd been rubbing, and this thing only had like 6,000 miles on it. The guy was like, I barely drive this. It doesn't even have my company stickers on it yet. So I don't even put it out on the road for advertisement as my techs are working. And they've just driven it here and there to pick up parts, but nobody really uses the side door. They all use the back door. And he said, these doors on this Transit are just trash. Nobody's lined them up correctly. I had to actually pull the plates off, open the holes up a little bit bigger because nothing would line up, readjust everything, lock it all back in, and then write it all in my story to get paid for Ford on everything that I had to do, because in order to get some of them plates out of there, you would have had to send it to a body shop and they would have had to professionally refit everything. And I was like, this guy ain't going to wait for all that. And some of these vehicles that are coming from the factory, oh my God, man, that's some of the worst panel fitment that I've ever seen.
How the Ford trucks been, like Super Duty and F-150?
So far, they've been pretty good. And
Yeah.
I like the way they look. They're aligned pretty good.
You guys,
Come again?
you guys have issues with the extended cab doors?
Not really.
No.
Not yet.
I have two customers. One has a 21 and one has a 20, both extended cab 550 utility bodies. It's like the driver's door, where the actual driver door meets the extended cab door. It's not aligned properly, and where the belt moldings are from window to window, from door to door, the actual man door, the larger door, is dropped probably a good quarter of an inch. Then I have another customer with the other one. It's a 550 extended cab utility body. You can't even open the extended cab doors. They're set so far in to the cab corner. You go to open them and they're too far in. You go to open it and the edge of the door digs into the cab corner. You can't even open the extended cab doors. He has an appointment back at the door. Yeah.
Are they high mileage? Older
No.
trucks? High mileage, a lot of use?
Nope.
Brand new.
One's a 20, one's a 21.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, brand new white 550 utility body. One's a utility body and one's a utility body with a dump insert in it.
Yeah, they got a lot more strikers. They got, correct me if I'm wrong, but they got one on top and the bottom for the rear door. And then they got the one in the middle, right?
Yeah. For the rear door, where the rear door closes against the cab, they have one top and one bottom. And then, yes, the front door closes against the rear door in the center. I think that rear door on, I guess what you'd call the suicide hinge on the cab corner, I just think it's sucked in too far. If it was out further, even when the door, it's in from the, like, you ran your hand from the cab corner to the door, it's probably in to go back to Ford.
Wow.
So I don't know because they had to have opened normally at some point in time. So I'm wondering if the bolts just weren't tightened enough, and maybe slamming those doors a couple times, like, just made the doors move on the hinge. They had to open and close at some point in time, or somebody would have noticed it before now.
Could have.
One of the things that we don't have to worry about from the factory ever, well, at least I've never heard, is putting DEF in the diesel fuel tank. Now, myself, Limitless, CPs, Ford Boss Me, we get customers that unfortunately do this, whether not paying attention. I've had a couple of guys say, "Oh, I was on the phone and oh my God, I just dispensed 2.5 gallons into my fuel." That's not good. I want to bring light to that subject with putting DEF in the diesel fuel tank. We actually had a gentleman comment a few live streams ago who actually did something similar, but we instructed him to not turn the key on. And unfortunately, this guy drove his truck, which means you turn the key forward, and it's not going to be good. I'd like to show you guys here a quick pic so you actually see what he wound up doing was taking his upper HSM fuel filter off and dumping the contents of that filter into a clear glass container.
So all that made it up to the upper filter, huh?
All that made it up to the upper filter. And if it goes to the upper filter, CP, where does that go if it goes to the upper filter?
That goes into your engine.
That's
Well,
not
in the
good.
Pump.
And what do we know about all those 9 Baker 246 kits?
Good luck.
They're on bad back order. Whether or not we have all the parts in the kit and we're missing a component to make a line, we don't have the kit. Everything's been back ordered.
That's crazy.
It is super, super important that if you own a 6.7 diesel, the best Ford Powerstroke on the road, if you are constantly filling your DEF, whether it is in a jug or like this gentleman did, he actually was using the fuel pumper at the fuel station, that DEF dispenser. You guys really need to make sure that you're dispensing it into the correct location. And he had said he had filled his truck up all the way and for whatever reason had the DEF nozzle to fill up his DEF, but continued to put it in his fuel tank. And he said he pumped and it clicked and he pumped it more and it clicked. And he's like, what the hell? The tank's full. Oh no. And kind of.
It must be one of those things where you got so much stuff going on, so many different things. You know, I don't know the exact situation, but to not know that nozzle, because it's a smaller nozzle. And then when you pull it out, when you go to the pump and you pull it out, it feels weird. Like you gotta pull it out and stretch it and wants to go back. And so for you to, it just, I can see it happening if you got a million things going on and someone's on the phone with you, you're on the phone and you're like, next thing you know, you just, but I mean, fingers crossed, I hope it never happens to me.
Well, it won't happen. It just needs to be, we need to be connected, our brains to our hands. So we're physically grabbing, like I have never, ever once, never say never, not never on all my 6.7s, 11 years, 6.7s, not once have I, oh my gosh, I just pulled the fuel cap off. No, I pulled the DEF cap off and put the DEF in the DEF hole.
Let me ask you this. You got disaster prevention. We got the good one.
It ain't gonna do nothing, babe.
Ain't gonna do nothing.
Ain't gonna do nothing.
It ain't gonna protect you for a second.
Nothing.
Not 1 second.
Absolutely nothing. That's not what it's protecting.
That's not what it's for.
Nope.
That's only protecting a fuel pump failure, period. Not rust, not water, not
Nothing.
DEF. That's just for a pump to fail. That's it.
So if if water goes through, it's gonna kill the
screwed.
pump. And
Water
that
does not
automatically-
lubricate.
Does it
Causes rust.
So that means your injectors are done.
Done. Donezo. You're not gonna replace one, two. I'll just replace the left bank. You're replacing all of
everything.
them. Everything. And the thing about it, people see the cost. Oh my God, it's going to be $12,000. Oh, it's going to be, I can't, is insurance, is the dealer, am I going to have to do this? Don't cheap out and get into the situation we're in. Drain the tank, not drop the tank, drain the tank, replace the filters, and you're gonna call it
No, yeah.
good. You're gonna wind up having to do that all over again, because the second you're gonna know is when what happens, Cody? You're gonna be driving down the interstate 75. No, you're gonna be driving down doing 90 miles an hour. Your big old 450 with those 19.5 semi-truck tires on it, and the bullet lug nuts stick out so it pokes you right in your kneecap. What's gonna happen? Reduce engine power.
Back to the dealer you go.
You're done.
Dude, it
done.
was crazy. I was talking to someone today, 20,000 miles, haven't changed the filters, fuel filters. And I'm like, you need to get on that. You need to schedule an appointment with the dealer and jump on that, because 20,000 miles, most techs are going to recommend every other oil change. How many oil changes have you had? And he's like, well, no one's ever really brought that up to change the filter. So he went and got a filter. And I was like, you know, he went to the dealer and everything. I was like, get 04 or get 540. I was like, get 540 too. You're be towing this RV all over the country, stuff like that. And you're in cold weather, then you're in hot weather, then you're in real cold weather, Arizona back to Michigan, whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, I'll tell him about the 540. He's like, yeah, they told me not to put 540 and it's $15 a quart, and they won't then just do the 1030. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you can't do the 5. I mean, they pretty much coerced him not to do the 540. What do you think about that?
I would be putting 1540 in it. My two go-to viscosities is 1030 and 540.
Yeah, they put 1030 in it, I think. I don't know. Actually, they put 1030 or 1540. I don't know. What was that?
You better get the 540 while you can.
No doubt. Are you guys short on stuff too?
They said we can't find anybody to replenish the bulk 530 right now, so they're kind of worried about that. They said that they're possibly worried about filters right now because it's starting to thin out. We haven't run out of them yet. They're not. They haven't ordered the new updated. What is it? 2144s or something like that, or
2114.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 2114s. They haven't ordered them to replace the 910 yet because we still have enough of those left. But I noticed our battery stock. I noticed our battery stock on the bottom shelf in the parts room has went from like a 40-foot section down to like a 15-foot section. I'm like, what the hell is going on, man? And then the guy that just brought his 22 Maverick in for the first oil change at 4,000 miles, I got a video up on that on the channel about talking to the customer about his experience the first 4,000 miles. And he said, I went to 3 other dealers. They didn't have 910 filters. So I had to come here because I wanted the one that's supposed to go on the vehicle. I didn't want an aftermarket one. I wanted the Ford one. And he said, you guys were the only one out of the 3 or 4 that I called that actually had the 910 filter.
I've been buying every filter I can buy from Walmart and Rural King.
Listen, guys, listen. We talk about this stuff every week, but we got Limitless in here. Dude,
don't worry about me.
no, man,
I'm
I want
just
to talk about
listening.
lights and stuff, man.
I'm just listening, pal.
I'm a lights fanatic.
I
I know
installed some
he's a
lights
lights fanatic.
I installed a couple lights a couple weeks
So
ago.
let me ask you, dude, I'm getting into lights. I'm just getting like warmed up, and I'm realizing that you have to get a wire with like 5 or 6 conductors in the wire if you're gonna do like flush mount lights. Am I wrong?
Mhm.
Like, am I in
Now,
light?
it depends on what lights they are. It depends on what brand they are. You don't necessarily need all of those wires to go to, say, the switch. But coming off of the light, like a lot of the lights that I use are five wire.
5.
You'd have a red and black power and ground. White is a steady burn. So let's just say you wanted to run that white wire to a separate switch. That'll act as like a floodlight.
Yeah.
Then you got your yellow, which will synchronize light to light. So basically they talk to each other and flash the same patterns. And then you got blue, which will change your pattern. So touching blue to a ground for a second will cycle to the next pattern. So you don't necessarily need to run all of those wires back to your power source. You could just run power and ground back. And then there's other 3, you could do what you need to do with them and kind of cap them off or hook the lights together. But yeah, most lights are like a 5 wire.
Yeah, that's my thing. I did a wiring on my 250 and I put like lights on my running boards whatever. But I used I used a 2-wire conductor. And then when I wanted to do more features, I was like, oh, I got to run another 2 wires. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm stopping this. I'm waiting until I get the right wire, just 1 wire with everything in it. Because it's just now.
It really planning out what you want to do and just running the wiring once. I don't use a single, say, conductor wire that's got a bunch. I don't use a single, say, sleeved wire with a bunch of conductors in it. I usually make my own harnesses and put them in loom or put them in sleeving. Just because sometimes I'll have like a 16 gauge, a 10, 16 gauge, 18 gauge, 20 gauge. So I have a bunch of different gauge wires depending on what I'm doing. But yeah, plan out what you want to do before so you're not doing it twice.
Well, you make everything easy with that kit, with the one that A-Rod has on his truck. It allows a module to flash the headlights. It interfaces with the headlights and basically any other light. And then I was asking A-Rod about that.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's a wire that synchronizes them together. Like you got to run that wire, but everything else is factory connections.
Yeah, so that yellow wire, like let's just say you wanted your, say, C-rings, fog lights, taillights, and reverse lights all to flash the same pattern. Each one of them is going to have its own module box. So you would take the yellow wire from each one of those boxes and just connect. After you set your patterns, just connect box to box to box. Nothing gets connected to the truck. It's just a box thrown together, basically, so they communicate with each other and flash the same pattern.
So does that stay with the brand? Do you have to use like the one brand of, like, say you get another?
A lot of them, you kind of want to stay brand specific if you want them to be synchronized or if you want them to flash the same patterns. Like let's say you have a Whalen light and a sound off light, you're not usually going to be able to synchronize those together so they say flash the same pattern. You could put them on the same switch and have them flash in different patterns, but to have them flash together, you're not
right.
Gonna do
Meaning like your headlights
brand specific.
Your headlights are doing this. Otherwise, they kind of be just going randomly.
They'd be going kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cody, cool, mod playlists. Is there a strobe kit for poor man halogen lights? Yeah, you drill into the housing and stick some little LED bulbs in there. Yeah, kind of a weird way to do it, but if you do it correctly and seal the little gem LED into the housing, then that would be a suffice.
That's how it used to be back in the day.
I see a lot of them come in and they have taken the headlight out and you can see 2 screws going through the actual headlight housing.
It's awful.
Like, oh my gosh, man.
That's awful. The ones that I do like that, I usually silicone in so you don't see the screws. And then you always want to make sure you get all that plastic shrapnel out of the headlight. Otherwise, that'll look like crap in a few months when it starts bouncing around and vibrating going down the road.
Yep.
So I've seen a kit. So you got yours where you can get each individual module and put them on different LED lights on the truck. But I also seen another company where they plug it into the OBD2 port. But then I'm reading the comments and they're all like, yeah, that's cool. All the lights flash and stuff, it turns off when you drive. Like somebody was saying you put it in
turning off when you drive, but I don't know. Aaron, what do you think about the body control module?
Yeah, I've seen that product, and I've had a couple of guys comment back to me regarding VCM. I don't know. I don't really dig stuff being plugged into the OBD connector. First off, these trucks are so sensitive to CAN networks and communication circuitry faults. The OBD connector now is a gateway module. If you look under your dash, it's not just the little trapezoid. It's a module that's this tall. And that's a module that allows us to communicate between MS CAN and HS CAN, and also has terminating resistors in it. This is the gateway of getting into the truck. And when you start putting stuff in there, You guys are
On the
just asking for
s-
problems, man.
On the 17s and up, it will set a DTC for the NOx module, not regenning. Or no,
Ooh.
particulate matter sensor not regenning.
Oh,
So
wow, man.
stay away from anything
It's
that
not
plugs into the
supposed to
OBD2.
happen. You're,
What you say?
yeah, it's not supposed to happen. That's
No.
kind of why, like the harnesses that I make, everything goes to each specific light. So
So the computer
Um,
doesn't know anything's happening.
yeah. So there's relays in there. So when the module is activated, there's nothing backfeeding the body control module. All we're doing
Yeah.
is flashing that specific light.
That's correct. My
Uh,
favorite light add-on was actually this video right here. You guys got to check out Rich's website. This is something that is simply easily installed. He's got a QR code going right to my video, and it's installing this factory DRW light. You guys can see it right above the license plate there.
Stop
And
sharing.
yeah, right there. You guys can see the three red LEDs. Oh, he's gonna go back here. Hold on. Factory, it's not. I've been asked so many times. Does it come on when you hit the brakes? This is not a brake light. It is a running light, and Rich has developed a version 2 harness. The one that I did in this video is completely different than what he's fabricated. Like I really need to redo mine. But he has a lot of. If you have LEDs and you want to do some stuff to your truck, dually light. He also has a really, I guess it would be, I don't know if you guys would use it, but the spotlights in your mirrors, do you want to turn those on anytime you want? Key off in your pocket, truck off, and not have those shut off, at that given speed when the BCM turns that off. A lot of cool stuff.
Well, I'm thinking since you're on topic of those spotlight mirrors, I'm thinking, what can I get from Limitless to be like effective? And I'm thinking that might be the module, the flash module, because I think you got a module just for that purpose, to flash those mirrors.
Yeah. So my mirror flash one, you could either buy it the basic harness where, like Aaron was just saying, you can turn them on at any speed. You could turn them on with the key off, the headlights off. They'll go on. If the switch is on, the lights are going to be on. So that's the basic harness he's showing right there. And then I have one also with a module onto it, a strobe module. Where
look at Daddy Diesel just cracking up behind my window.
once you install that, you will need to run a power wire out to either a customer supplied switch or one of your auxiliary switches to make it strobe. But also along with that kit, it will let you do the same thing as the basic kit, where you can turn them on whenever you want. You have the option to turn them on whenever you want, or you have the option to strobe them.
You got to run a constant 12 to.
No, not a constant 12 volt.
Oh, on
to
the
the module. If you want them to strobe, you need to run you need to run that power from the module to a switch. If you want them to strobe, if you just want the basic kit where they come on with the buttons whenever you want, it's that harness that Aaron's showing right there, and that is literally a 2-minute install. There's nothing to disassemble. You just need to trim a little tab off of the factory green connector, and that's only because the connector manufacturer doesn't make the proper female version to that male. So the closest one they make is that gray connector, and it's just got the locating thing on the other side. So you just got to trim that little tab off.
Well, I'm interested.
Which is no big deal. It's not going to affect.
It's not going to affect nothing.
No.
I want to get that mirror.
What mirror?
That mirror module, so that I can flash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's higher, like it's up high. Like I would love the C rings, but my C rings aren't running when my plow's on.
Yeah.
So if I got the mirrors.
The thing you got to be careful on some trucks that I've ran into on some 20 to 22s. It doesn't happen on the 17 to 19s, just 20 to 22s, depending on plow manufacturer. If you install the strobe harnesses and you have your snowplow hooked up and the snowplow lights are plugged in, some do and some don't. The C rings will not work if the plow is plugged in. They won't strobe if the plow is plugged in. You unplug the plow and they work just fine, but it's just some plow manufacturers.
Now that's probably the boat I'm in. I'm in the Western snowplow, the Western Fisher. And as soon as you turn on the snowplow headlights, it turns off the C rings. So I'm probably going to be in that boat to where I can't.
Yeah. Yep.
Unless I figured out how to bypass, because I'm pretty much tapping into the harness under the fender liner. They call it the snowplow interface harness, and you're tapping into that, and that pretty much cuts everything off between the truck. So if I can figure out which wiring is required just to get my C rings to work, I don't know if that's possible or not, but
now
something to think about when you do have a plow, if you want to do the strobe lights like in headlights or fog lights. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you want to remember that you just don't want those reflecting back in your eyes when snowplow is on. That'll get super annoying. So if you have like a Western or a Fisher like stainless version plow, you don't want those lights constantly reflecting back in your face while you're plowing or driving down the road. It gets super annoying.
Yeah.
Now we just had a guy comment.
That might backfire anyway, huh?
Yeah,
it might. We just had a guy comment about the new bed light mod. If you do not have the factory bed lights, and I'm talking about the two lights that are in the inside of your bed, and then on the left side, the driver's side, it has a little rubber soft button to hit. Rich now has a factory harness made up to add bed lights, and you will need 4Scan to turn on a couple of things in the BCM, couple of different as-built codes, and hey, it can be a factory install. Going to be adding pins, just like if you go in the comment section, you'll see some links we posted for the DRW and the strobe lights. But the DRW, we were not cutting any wires. We added the pin right into the factory connector. The whole trucks, all the trucks have the DRW harness or circuit. The bumper harness denotes whether or not you are dually or you are single rear wheel. So all we did was just add the dually circuit to our single rear wheel bumper harness. And now we have, or bed harness, sorry. And now we have the factory install.
You should get those bed lights to strobe.
Oh, I mean, I can make whatever you want, strobe. I can do it. I don't know what purpose that would serve, but if you want it, I'll do it.
It'd be cool. So like the bed lights, when you turn those on, it automatically turns the third brake light on too, right?
Yep. It turns the cargo light on. Yep. Yeah.
You will have.
Yeah, that's something that I just listed up today.
Go back through here. Ford Boss Me, how are you feeling tonight? Jonathan Sherwood asks.
You look like you're in deep thought.
I'm good. I'm very, very good. I had a little accident, but I'm all right.
That
you know
happened
what?
to me once.
I wanted to ask you something. I forgot to ask you this morning. Have you had 15, 16, 17 50 F-150s complain that the steering is locked up? And all I got it, couldn't verify it. I immediately pulled it in. It was a police vehicle. They said it was very hard to tow. Steering was locked solid. Get it fired up, drive it in. The only DTC that I had, it's got a brand new battery, was a U3003. And
go ahead.
It wanted me to go through that interactive PSCM, interactive diagnostics, through the workshop manual, and I wound up having to leave, so I didn't get to finish that. But I was like, if the steering, how is it going to be good and then bad and then good if it's electronic? Then what? Something happened inside that gear and just completely locked up.
Well, a lot of it, it's hard to say what exactly happened, but a lot of it comes down to battery voltage. A lot of times when these things go haywire, and that's one of the things that we were talking about last time, especially on the smaller vehicles and stuff, is if that power steering if the PSCM doesn't constantly see the voltage that it needs, and then you go to operate the thing, or people are jump starting it in cold weather all the time, you may very well fry that system. And I've replaced several of the, not just in the 5 liters, but in the 3.5 and the 2.7s as well.
Oh, wow.
I've replaced those power steering column control module whole assembly. And normally when you start seeing U codes, if you can't bring it back online with like a PMI or something like that, it's done.
Are you
not gonna-
doing the whole rack? Or are you talking
Yeah.
about something underneath? Oh, okay.
the whole rack?
Interesting.
And normally when the U codes pop up, if you can't save it by bringing the module back online, trying to program it back online, it's done. It ain't gonna come back online.
I have a video coming out showing you guys some of the tools that we have, just have at the dealer for all these new vehicles. It is called See What I See. And it is totally new technology for us. The only thing I can say right now to give you guys a brief description would be Google Glass and its ability to be interactive between the technician, the dealer, and Ford Motor Company, i.e. The field service engineer hotline, where Rich and I have to call to get assistance with problem child vehicles. For instance, like when he had DeVito's truck. You got to, submit a ticket and all the information and, applicable vehicle data. And, there's a lot of information that they have on a national scale than just the information that, we see come into our stores. So it's always good to be able to reach out to those guys to help us get the vehicle diagged. And it's going to be kind of cool. I'm excited to see it, or at least be able to use it on a vehicle. I was just highlighting, turn it on, show you guys the viewfinder, what I see, what the hotline would see.
I love them.
Oh, look at your eye, poor little bugger.
Guys, I
Poor
did a
little
job.
bugger.
I did a little side job. I did a little wiring.
Oh
to a-
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, man. I was it just kind of happened. I just kind of stumbled into it. Guy saw a video and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this to my truck?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know." So we communicated via text a couple times, and I'm doing it a little bit shady anyway. I'm running off of the 12-volt power off of my mirror spotlight module. But right before it hits the module, I just take the 12 volts from it, and it's always 12 volts. And I just kind of ran with it. I figured, hey, if it's going to overload that wire, maybe it'll blow a fuse, and I'll just worry about that when that happens. But it's not a cigarette lighter. It's just a USB. It only has USBs coming out of it. So you can't plug an air compressor in it, but you can plug like a cell phone, whatever, into it. I've tried it out. It's been okay. And I told him the risk too. I'm like, hey, this is not really, approved and whatever. But he wanted it to run off of whenever he turned the vehicle on, he wanted it to turn on, and he wanted it to turn off whenever he turned the vehicle off. And I'm like, all right, that's gonna be a little bit more work, but I'll do it. So I had to take out the battery tray and stuff and get at the upfitter switch harness. In the upfitter switch harness, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a 20 amp wire that's like 12 gauge, I think. I don't know, close to 12 gauge. It's like 20 amps. It's fused already, and it's only hot. It's ignition wire. It's only hot when you turn on the truck. So
there's a
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say there's a constant wire in there with that bundle, and then there's an ignition wire in there with that upfitter bundle.
Well, that's a sweet ignition wire, because you can't take a dang normal ignition wire. Like if you go down to the right side kick panel on the truck, there's an ignition wire coming out in the bundle there too. But I don't think it's fused very high. Like you can use that to be a trigger.
No, that's a thin gauge.
Yeah, that's a thin gauge.
Like trigger a relay.
That's a trigger a relay. This other one,
Yeah.
it's thick, it's heavy gauge, and it's fused heavy, like for 20 amps or something. So I'm like, that's my one. You want to put a a power point inside your
Yeah,
car. You
I
can
believe you're right.
I think you can put a cigarette lighter on that if you wanted to. You know, like that plug where you can just plug in whatever into it. But I put a 3-port USB on it. But man, oh my, what a bomb, dude! It took me all day. It was horrible. So I tried to use a pass-through wire, which kind of wasn't good as the wiring coming out. So it really isn't. That's really not great for a 20 amp circuit. But then again, it's the actual product that we're installing is thinner and it's already fused as well, and it's not heavy gauged. But still, But then the pass-through wires, I was thinking maybe I'll double 2 up. Maybe I'll just put 2 on there so that it's more, you know, and not have to run a wire. The freaking pass-through wires were so far up that I couldn't even reach them. Like they were just not coming down anymore. It's like, man, they put these wires here, but they didn't give you they're not very long. So I had to scrap that. I had to run a wire. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I've had a few. I remember when Aaron's truck, the pass-throughs were kind of up there by the heater box. I've had 2 22s come in, and they made it super easy on. Well, at least both of those, the pass-through wires were right there, along with that 22-pin harness for, like you were talking about, like hooking up PTOs or upfitter harnesses, right there next to the BCM. They're right in your face as soon as you take that kick panel off.
Man, I had to dig
So
and dig.
hopefully they realized that and they changed it.
Maybe they did, but this was a 20. It was a 2450. I had to dig and oh my God, there I can barely see it. And then I kind of pulled on it and I'm like, it won't come down. I think it could have even been pinched or something. So I ran a new wire and I took the battery tray out and I ran a wire down by the fender and I came up into the cab through that little rubber grommet, just put a pinhole through that and then the wire just went through there. And then I ran that wire, hooked it all up. But dude, I made the dumbest mistake ever. I'm so embarrassed, man. So I did this already to my truck, but I think I got into the mindset like, oh, I'm getting paid per job. I gotta get it going. I'm making the most I can make per hour. And I'm already kind of losing because I should kind of charge more to come off of the battery and go all through take all that out. And then I should have charged more, but I didn't. So I'm kind of going. I put this thing, so I had to drill a hole. You have to take the top tray out of the Super Duty on the top dash of the IP. There's a tray. I take it out. I put a hole in it. I put this thing in it, tighten it up so this thing's flush. I did all this work. I go to put it on, and this thing's protruding out of the bottom of that tray, and it's hitting the frame underneath the IP. And I'm like,
Jesus.
oh, no, I can't even. And I had to tell him, I'm like, I apologize. I didn't plan enough, and I would have had to set it an inch back. Like I put it like right in the middle. I should have put it like toward the rear so it wouldn't hit anything when you snap it down. So he came back today, and I redid everything, and I gave him my little rubber insert. I covered it all up and sealed it again, and so there's no hole there, but I gave him my rubber insert to even cover that up. And I was like, you know, and then I re-drilled it and moved it and everything. But it kind of makes me think, man, how did you get started doing all this wiring, 12-volt modification?
I'll be honest. I grew up, my dad, 36 years now, has had his own 4-wheel drive shop, done a lot of conversions, engine conversions, 4-wheel drive conversional vans, just a 4-wheel drive shop. But by trade, he's a tool and die maker. So he's got a machine shop there too. And I grew up in his shop. Always like trucks from a kid. I got my first Super Duty back in 2001. I still have it. But anyway, the first thing I did to that truck, and we're like right at the 20-year mark, was always loved strobe lights like Aaron. Always loved flashing lights. First thing I did was pull the corner lights out and tail lights out and put one of those hideaway whaling kits in there. That was the first one I ever did. So I kind of learned on my own vehicle. I'm super OCD with things. I always want to make everything look like if we took it to that dealership where Aaron or Rich is working on it. And I don't want my stuff to stick out like a sore thumb. I want it to look like it's supposed to be there. So I got to be honest, this whole basic second business that I've started with the 12-volt stuff and the wiring, like I kind of geek out on certain things. I'll zone into something. I want to figure it out. So I wanted to try and figure some stuff out, figure out some connectors and whatnot, and just went from there. It's kind of honestly a fluke. But I was always into the electronic side of stuff and figuring stuff out like that. But basically, like I said, it started as a fluke. I grew up in a shop pulling rears apart at 10 years old, pulling engines out of trucks. And like I worked in my dad's shop from the time I was 9 years old. So the electronic stuff is something that I just like picked up, liked, enjoyed, and geeked out over and kept working at it.
Yeah. Because I'm kind of thinking
I hope
like,
that answers your question.
I'm kind of thinking like this is not something I'm asking for, but I'm just kind of getting people are like asking about it, and it's just me working on my own truck. And I guess if somebody wants something, I'll do a little something simple that I've already done before or whatever.
It worked out well.
As you,
DS was contacted to do the same kind of stuff to his truck, and we're gonna spread the repairs around. He handled an electrical repair and upsold the customer a fuel filter knowledge, oil change knowledge, educated this man because this is his first diesel, and sent him my way for some forescan programming. So that, it starts just like with what DS is saying. I mean, yeah, you'd be doing this stuff on your truck, but I mean, if somebody's going to reach out to you to have the same thing done.
I think it would be a huge value for me to learn some of those Limitless products, kind of like the headlight modification, as well as other lights that can
man, I got to be honest. I try and make everything as extremely simple as possible.
Yeah.
I send instructions out, but man, I make it almost where you can't screw anything up. There's like
you can't dumb it down any more than that.
But I can't
but
make
you'd be
it any
surprised.
simpler.
Like, do you have to pull a
no,
headlight, or do you have to like how?
No. You don't got to pull the front end apart at all. Nope.
Nothing.
All you got to do,
Nothing.
You could do it in literally. You can install if you want to do the headlights and the fog lights, you can install that kit. A novice, I would say, would be able to install that kit in maybe 2 hours tops. You don't need to pull the grill out. You don't need to pull the headlights out. Jack the truck.
But you gotta realize it's hard to see like the ability of somebody who knows. Like for a guy like you who's so good, it's hard to even wrap your head around somebody that just, I'm gonna drop it off. I'm gonna drop it off the DS. He's gonna make me strobe. There's people out there, dude, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I try and make it as simple as possible, and I have people driving 6-8 hours to come have me install the stuff. I'm like, I ship it to you. I'll give you instructions. If you have problems with anything and figuring anything out, you can always call.
To you.
And that's the thing. They said, I just want to bring it to you. So the thing is, let's just say the C-rings or whatever. Man, you got to take the wheelhouse liners out. That's all you got to take out. If you don't even want to take the tires off and you want to struggle a little bit leaving the tires on, you got to pull the wheelhouse liners out. Once the wheelhouse liners are out, you can get right to the back of that headlight plug. So you don't need to take the headlight. You don't need to take the front of the truck apart at all.
Okay.
Wheelhouse liners. That's it.
And so that gives you right to the pass-through wires and everything right there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, even those liners for a guy that's not even mechanically inclined, you got to take a liner off. Then it gets like
the double liners can be a little bit of a pain in the butt where you have
they can be a pain.
That plastic on top of it.
Getting them lined back up
to put back in can be a little bit of a pain.
The 450s, you got to pull the flares. So you got to be ready to finesse. You got to be ready to warm that thing up a little bit.
I got to be honest, man. You don't. No. You don't need to pull your flares. You don't need to pull your fender flares. You can get a 5.5 millimeter deep socket and get it. You don't have to take the flares off. No. Nope. You can get a 5.5 millimeter deep socket.
I made that mistake.
And kind of just weasel it around. Yeah, you'll have to like finesse the flare, the edge of the flare in the wheel well. Just finesse it down a little bit with the socket or an extension. Just kind of push it in there. But no, you don't need to risk breaking those clips or possibly screwing up a flare. You can get it off when leaving the flares on the fenders.
Okay.
Just spit on it.
Yeah, because I took my flares off and put them back, and then one didn't look right, and then I finally figured it out. But there's definitely a risk taking the flare off.
My back itching.
To me, it just looked like it wouldn't work because it's like reaching all in there, like it's like covering part of that liner, that wheel liner.
No, It will certainly work. And that's the thing. Like I said, in my instructions, I try and make everything as simple as possible. So I tell people, like, you don't need to take this apart. You wheelhouse liners, that's it. You don't need to take anything else off. Literally,
It's-
I'd rather
doing mechanical stuff though, it sounds like, oh yeah, you just take the wheel liners. That's hard. I remember turning my first wrench and just going, bang, busting my nut. It takes some. It just takes some kind of learning. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the customers that I do have that ask me as far as like installing it, like you're saying, the novice or somebody that's never really messed with it before and they're not comfortable. I mean, I kind of recommend them. If you have a stereo shop in the area, if you have a mechanic shop in the area, you have a body shop in the area. That's all work that any of those three places can do and accomplish. And like I said, there's literally no way you could hook my stuff up wrong. All you're doing is hooking up a power wire. If that's all you want to do, you're hooking up a power wire. So yeah, I kind of recommend one of those three businesses if the person's not completely comfortable.
Yeah. So for your power wire, your best solution is to go hit the pass-through wires and then come back in.
So honestly, up until these past 222s where the pass-through wires are right dead in my face, for the wires that are in my cab that I need to get out to the truck, what I generally like to do is what you were, I don't know if we were speaking of the same rubber plug, but in the floorboard, if the truck has the power steps, you have that rubber plug that goes through the floor to the power step plug. If it doesn't have the power steps, usually it just has a rubber grommet. If it's got LEDs, usually it'll have a rubber grommet there. I'll take that and I get a hole punch kit. I don't like cutting, say, an X in the grommet with like a razor blade, and then you have it. I have a hole punch kit, and I'll punch the appropriate size where it's a little tighter when you're pushing the loom through, so it seals up. And I'll go right through that hole, and then you got your main frame harness right there. So I'll go right through that hole, and then to the frame harness up to the upfitter. That's just the way I prefer to do it. I don't really usually hit the pass-through wires. Just up until these past two that I've worked on, they've just been a pain to get to.
Yeah.
So
They need to put a 12 gauger in there. At least one 12 gauge in there for us. That'd be cool.
Yeah. But that's kind of my go-to. That's what I always do.
Oh, let's see what I missed up here. Yeah, those pass-through wires, man, they got them things so far up on the passenger side, right by the fan blower motor. Gosh, man, like you could have made them things just a little longer, or they suck when they're that far up in there.
Yeah, I got to get dialed in on how to do a high idle. I mean, I know how to do it, but I just need to get dialed in and actually maybe do one. I know a lot of people can use that.
You want the bodybuilders book page? I'll send it to you.
I mean, I get the gist of it. I just never done it.
Yeah, you're just taking that 22 pin harness there that's by the body control module. You're going to hook a power to either one of your upfitter, one of your pass-throughs to an upfitter, or out the floor to an upfitter, and then a resistor in between two wires.
Yeah, and you got to choose a resistor size.
There's a chart. Yeah, there's a chart for idle speed to which appropriate resistor.
One of our channel members just asked, Limitless, would you install a spare tire train horn kit on upfitter switch number 1?
What are you using the upfitter for? Are you using the upfitter to activate the horn? No. That's one more thing that I do make is a harness to integrate the train horns into the factory horn, where again, it's plug and play. You do have to hook up two wires. You're going to hook up one wire to an upfitter that you choose, and you're going to hook up a second wire to the positive from your train horn valve. And basically, let's say you do pick upfitter number 1. Upfitter number 1 is off, and you're going to hit your horn in your steering wheel. You're going to have the factory horn. Upfitter number 1 is on. You're going to hit the horn in the steering wheel, and you're going to have your train horn.
I think you're
recommend using an up. You say turn on your compressors or make the horn blow. To me, if you're in, what'd you hear?
Keep
the last thing you got?
Keep talking.
I was just gonna say I don't recommend using an upfitter to either turn the compressor on or to make the horn blow. Generally, if you have one of those kits, you have a pressure switch on your tank the compressor's hooked to. You don't need to worry about running that to a switch. Just run that to ignition. That is a switch. You don't need a switch for a switch. If it's on an ignition circuit, when the key is on, that compressor is going to fill. You don't got to worry about your compressor being filled up. You just run it to ignition source like we were talking about earlier in that upfitter harness. And yeah, no, I don't recommend doing the compressor or using the horn for an upfitter. But if you're going to do like what I said, where it basically triggers a relay, then yeah.
Okay.
Freaking A.
I actually saw somebody that wired their. This was out in Vegas at SEMA. Somebody that had a truck in the show, the shop down in Texas wired the train horns, like instead of using the horn as an on, like they use the upfitter switch to activate the horn, like a momentary beep beep. Well, the truck was in the show. The compressors had never been filled. The tank had never been filled, but it was wired up to upfitter number 6. And upfitter number 6 had the jumper fuse moved, so it was powered on all the time. The guy that owned the truck, his girlfriend wanted to sit in the truck and take a nap. Well, I guess I don't know what she was doing, but she hit upfitter number 6, which basically was sending a constant, that's a 40 amp circuit, sending that to a train horn valve, which is an 18 gauge wire. It's very low current. Basically it sat there all night and melted the whole harness in the back of the truck. Thankfully, it didn't set the truck on fire. Yeah.
Are you saying because the upfitter switch is not momentary?
Yeah, it's not momentary. So it was sending a constant power source to that valve. So that valve was getting constant power for 12 hours, 14 hours, and it's only an 18 gauge wire coming out of the valve.
So you're fused and everything. Everything's fused up for 40 amps. So you're not even sweating that 40 amp circuit, but that train horn, whatever that valve, whatever you're saying,
40 amps and it
melted it.
No, and eight. Nope, that
so that goes to show, like when you do something like that,
wasn't going to do anything to that 40 amp.
Well, that's an important point. Like if you're going to run that always on 40 amp upfitter switch to something, then you technically want to put another fuse in there to protect that wiring that you're actually putting into that 40 amp, because that's the one that you can pull the fuse out, move that little thing over, and you can make that turn on when the vehicle's off. So that's a sought after spot. Yeah. Well, if you put lights on there and they have thin gauge wire and you didn't step that down to a 10 amp or whatever, 7 amp, whatever, fuse in line, then your 40 amps, you'll burn up your wiring before you burn up your
you're not going to burn the fuse. Exactly. Yeah.
And you want to burn the fuse.
Up, yeah, that's what the fuse is for. When I hook stuff up like that, because LEDs are low current, so I will take off, because you can't buy a smaller fuse to put in that fuse box, that style, that like
right. I looked into that. You can't buy that.
Yeah, you can't buy that in like a 10 amp. I think the lowest you get is 20 or 25. So what I usually do is take that upfitter wire, which is usually 10 gauge for that number 6. I'll put an inline fuse in it and then bump it down to whatever I need, whether it's a 15 or a 10 or a 20. So it'll hit that fuse before it hits the factory fuse, just to keep this stuff safe, like we're talking.
I do want to bring something up. I meant to ask this question to Ford Boss, A-Rod, U2 Limitless. So is it possible, if there's an extra spot in a fuse panel, could you add something to that spot and put a fuse in it? If you had that would be a cool video, because the guys that want to keep things OEM and they want to put another circuit somewhere, what if you could just put a whole nother fuse in the extra spot and then run a circuit off of that?
If you have room,
you'd have to get to the back of that. Well, you'd have to get to the back of that fuse box and put a terminal in. Usually if it has the power side, it doesn't have the accessory side. So you'd have to have that accessory side where you could plug something into it, correct?
I don't know. I'd have to see something. I don't know if it'd be too complicated to be worth it or not.
You have to have the accessory side on Keon. Ford does that type of stuff all the time. They're doing it right now with the Expedition or the Explorer high fan. High fans are getting stuck on, so they want you to relocate.
Yep.
Siemens relay to a Bosch relay. They can handle more of that current draw and stuff, and they have you add new wires and everything in there. And even with the the fuel pump relocation kit, right? A-Rod?
Yep.
That was on the 5.4s. Now, say for example, go ahead.
When I add electric pumps on OBS trucks, I populate the fuse, but I have to put in both sides, power and ground, or power and the side leading out to the pump.
Because I wonder, so on Super Duties, we have a way to add ignition 12 that's fused for at least 20 amps right off the upfitter switch bundle. But if you want constant 12, a good source of constant 12 volts, key off the whole deal, like key off constant 12. I wonder if, so you can run a line right to the battery.
There is a wire in that upfitter bundle that's constant 12. It's probably a 12 gauge wire, and it's a constant 12. There's an ignition 12 and there's a constant 12 in that upfitter bundle.
Oh, okay. Well, that solves that problem.
And it's already fused. I think it's it's like a 20 or 25 amp fuse, I believe. But yeah, there's
I
a
didn't know
constant
that.
there's a constant and an ignition in that upfitter bundle.
Dang, that's the only reason I know about the ignition one is because I was reading a snowplow manual from like Boss, and they're talking about using that 12, that heavy duty ignition. But that's why I didn't know. But when you read the manual, it doesn't say anything about that.
No, it's on the wires. So whoever the first person is to open up that upfitter bundle, the wires, they tape it up real tight. That they always put a sticker on what is the number 6 upfitter wire. It's a sticker, and on that sticker it'll say, all right, this color wire is this, and it breaks them all down. And a lot of times if somebody uses the number 6, they put that right at the end of the wire. So if you're going to use that switch, that little tag sticker's got to go in the trash. But it is on there. It breaks everything down for you, which as well.
Like on my truck, I couldn't see it. And then on this guy's truck I worked on, when I opened it up, I could read the whole thing. I'm like, oh, there's the brown one. I didn't read the whole, I didn't really look at it long enough to see a constant 12, but it's good to know that it's there.
Yeah, it is for sure.
I don't think any of the upfitter switches are momentary, right? They're all just on off, right?
Yeah, they're all on off switches.
Freaking A. I think this might be a good time to stop. I want to go to bed. I need to rest. But I want to thank, look, Mr. Zeekster. One last question. Limitless, do you have anything to add? Some upfitter switches if you don't have them?
You can add upfitters if you don't have them. You will need to
Not
buy,
on 20s though, right?
What do you mean? On a 20-year model year?
Yeah, can you add upfitter switches to them?
Yeah, you could add upfitters. If your truck doesn't have upfitters, you can add upfitters. You need I have a list of OEM stuff that you need to buy. You need to obviously buy a new overhead console. There's a wire harness. There's actually a plug by the battery tray that's got a cap in it. If you don't have the upfitters that you tie into, you'll obviously need that fuse box. But yeah, you can add upfitters to a truck that doesn't have.
Yeah.
How about the newer F-150s?
The newer F-150s, honestly, I don't think everything is there for them. I'm sure if you wanted to get creative, you could make it work. But I've
seen some stuff. But
well, the Raptors have it. But
the Raptors.
Are you gonna be able to find the parts? Now it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to find the parts for the Super Duty. So it's definitely gonna be tough to find the parts for a 150. I think the problem too is like if you go to the dealer and get all the parts for upfitter switches on a Super Duty, it can be expensive. It's just
I think it's around like $600 between buying the console. I think it's around $600 just to add them.
And then you gotta have a good parts guy too.
Well, I mean, if you go, I don't know what you guys got, but where I'm at, going to I have a couple good parts guys, but if you say, hey, I want to add upfitters to this truck, they're not going to know what's what. I have a list of part numbers written down in my toolbox. So you just call that parts guy up and say, hey, I need whatever, the part numbers to them.
They're liable to be like, hey, what's your VIN? Oh, you can't, because that's not
exactly. They just call part numbers.
You'd have to pull all those numbers.
I have some good parts guys. I just tell them parts numbers and they order me whatever I want.
So you need an overhead. You need an overhead console, a harness to go. I would imagine down like the A-pillar or something.
There's an overhead console. You need the harness that goes there. You need obviously the fuse box under the hood. There is wiring under the hood, that you plug into, but you need the underhood fuse box, you need the overhead console, and then a wiring harness to tie everything together.
So as far as passing through the firewall, is there a plug to allow you to pass through the firewall? You don't have to do anything there, or do you have to get this wire from the A-pillar through the firewall?
No, you don't need to get it through the firewall.
So there's a way
Nope,
that
there's a
it's just plugged.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
that provision is at least there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a huge deal. Like I said, it's about, if I remember correctly, about $600 in parts. And then
Yeah,
if you want to tackle it yourself, or you pay somebody the labor.
Right.
It's worth it. I think a big value with that upfitter switch harness is, like we were just saying, having a heavy duty 12-volt ignition, having a heavy duty 12-volt constant. You don't got to have a wire hanging off your battery now. You don't even got to put the eyelets in it. On your positives, you don't even have, on the battery terminals, you don't always have an eyelet to even hook another thing up to it. So you might have to change out the terminal or whatever in order to add another item to your positive sometimes. A lot cleaner. You won't even see any wires, with the upfitter switch bundle.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you stopping through, everybody in the comment section. Rich. Appreciate you
Yeah,
guys
you got to be
coming,
more specific.
coming true. Rich.
Dude, you
And,
gotta come back again at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Hell yeah.
I don't have a problem. I'm good. You guys let me know.
Okay. Hell yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Remember to like, comment, sub, share, and we'll see you guys on Friday.